I just was really struggling where I was. And I was driving to work one day and I was like, if I just had a little accident and then I could take some time off. And then I came home, and at that time we had 3 girls, and I was looking at like the smallest one. I was like, imagine if any of my 3 girls were driving to somewhere every day for 80% of their life, thinking, if someone just crashed into me and I had a little break, oh, that would break my heart for them. Do you know, like, that is not a nice place to be.
Cáit, can you tell us what initially led you to this creative practice, creating as a profession?
I worked as a therapist for over 10 years, and I was like, I need to get out. So I did lots of different things to see how I could get out. I was reared for school, college, permanent pensionable job, like find a boyfriend, get married, have a baby, do the house, that like very linear. So I thought when I was a therapist, that's all I could do, and I couldn't see beyond that, but I didn't know who I was. So when I was really struggling in my job, it was a whole crisis of myself, because that was my whole identity. And I was like, who am I if I'm not an OT? Like, who is Cáit beyond this permanent pensionable job that I really strived hard to get into originally, and all of the people I'd be letting down if I even did consider. So I stuck at that for way longer than I should have had. Well, not should have had, because I learned lots. But so I did try other things. I tried placenta encapsulation, like I did mad stuff. I kind of kept it in the health sphere because I thought that's all I was made for. And like as a young child, I was always told I'd work in healthcare. And then we had our second girl. I was on unpaid leave, and I do not like depending on anybody for anything. So I was like, I need to earn my own money. I can't even go for a coffee without feeling guilty. My husband's like, why don't you sell your cards? And I was like, what would I, like, it was always something I had done but hadn't acknowledged that it was like a good thing or a gift. There's 4 girls in my family growing up, and I was never deemed the creative one. So I was never encouraged that way or like pushed that way. And like I said, I was always told I should work in healthcare. Whereas my older sister was the creative one, and she was like, you know, she was brought to music lessons, and she went to do architectural technology in college, and she made a portfolio for art college. Like, so I was just never, that was a different world, that was in a different lane, and it wasn't mine. And when my husband said that, I was like, why? That just, but like if I looked back on all the years, so we know each other since I was 16, and he'd always buy me like really fancy pens that I would never invest in and stuff. And it was like, he could always see the gift I had, and it was just something I did to like maintain a balance. So I'm really grateful I have him, because I don't know if I'd ever have found it. But so on that maternity leave, I started hand-drawn cards for a £5, and I put them up on Instagram. And I had 2 women, one from Kilkenny and one from Clare, who bought from me consistently. And I was like, what is this? Like, why would they? And then when I look back, I was only charging a £5 for whatever they wanted. But like, I just I couldn't understand why anybody would buy it. But also I was like, this isn't unreal. So I stayed in my job for, I think, 3.5 years beyond that, and all the time I was working on it. But just like that, 2 women buying my €5 cards on Instagram opened up so much more for me. That whole linear path that I had been in, and the boxes I had put myself in, like I know I say I was reared that way, but I stayed that way. The reason I left my job in the end was probably survival more than bravery, or even that I knew what I was doing. I just was really struggling where I was. And I was driving to work one day, and I was like, if I just had a little accident and then I could take some time off and like injure a finger or toe so I could take at least 6 weeks. And then I came home, and at that time we had 3 girls, and I was looking at like the smallest one. I was like, imagine if any of my 3 girls were driving to somewhere every day for 80% of their life, thinking, if someone just crashed into me and I had a little break, oh, that would break my heart for them. Do you know, like, that is not a nice place to be. And I still didn't think that creativity was the way for me, but it was the only thing I had going. Then I suppose in the 3 years that I had been drawing and selling, I had met so many creative people that just left jobs and did stuff, or like women that had seeds of ideas and grew massive. And it was also a gender thing. When I was looking at even jobs that I could have qualified for, if I didn't tick every single box, I was like, no. Whereas I know every man would have gone for that. So like there was also a gender thing where I felt, stay in your lane, you know. So I had a whole crisis of self, but it was my girls then that were like, you need to make a change, or you're going to model the same behaviour for them, and they're going to end up surviving rather than thriving. And that's like not what I want for them.
Yeah, that's so impactful, having to switch and think about the kids.
I remember one silly thing like years ago was when we had our oldest girl. So our oldest girl is 20 now, and we were living in our garage at the time because our house had burnt down. We had the whole thing. But I had this really lovely outfit, and I was like, I loved it, and I felt really good in that moment. I was like, I wish I could wear this to work. And she was like, why couldn't you? And I could wear ordinary clothes to work, but it felt too creative for the job I was in. And I was like, couldn't wear this to work. This is too out there. Like I was so in a headspace of, you're not supposed to be that person. So to jump in, I went to several counsellors over probably the last 5 years of my career, focused on my career and my sense of self. Like I was so lost in the world. I didn't know who I was or where I would fit in the world if I wasn't an OT. And like that, we had our girl, when I studied my master's to become an occupational therapist, like everybody helped me. And I knew I'd probably lose relationships if I left. And I have lost relationships in my family since I've left my career. And I don't think that they even understand why that's happened. But in order for me to survive in this world, which I'm thriving in, like even if I'm not thriving in successful metrics, I am thriving. So I now know who I am. I was so good at being good. And then suddenly, I'm not even being bad, but suddenly I was just myself. And yeah, our family life is, I have 3 amazing sisters and I have 2 parents, but our family broke down when I was probably 12, I think, or 10. So dad moved out and all the rest of it, but we were like good Catholic family. So the shame and the guilt and all of this. So some of us rebelled, but my rebellion was always internal, but outside I was good. Like I got the good grades. I would have self-harmed more than I would have harmed other people. So when I then decided, actually, I don't want to do what everyone's telling me, immediate people in my family didn't really respect it or appreciate it, because I'd always just been the reliable good. That's how I see it now. Maybe it's not how other people see it. But I always toed the line because I loved keeping the peace and I wanted to keep us together as much. We were broken, but I was always the person who saw dad and mum, and I was always just trying to keep. Connection is obviously the core of my business now, and that is obviously why, because like I don't understand why people can choose like disharmony over love. Like why, when you can just say, I'm fucking sorry, or why can't we just honour the little people inside us and be like, this is who I am, and if this is who you are, I'll hold space for you and you hold space for me. That was very deep. For my 30th birthday, like I asked, could my family of origin just sit at a table together and like break bread? That's literally all I wanted. And now I'm 38 and I'm accepting that that's not going to happen. And a big part of that now is because of me. Originally, I was the person trying to bring it together, but now I'm like, actually, I can't make those changes for other people. I can only do myself. And this is my circle of change. Like I am the only thing I can influence. And if I am living true to myself and my power and who I am supposed to be here, then everyone else can do what they want. For my daughters, if they can see, if you're true to who you are, then that's what success is. And if they want to make jam, or if they want to be a corporate accountant, if that's what makes them light up, then do it.
Tell me about your art. I love your joyful, colourful, inspiring art. And I remember the very beginnings of it on Instagram. It's been years since we've been connected. Yeah. Instagram friends first. Yes. It feels very organic for you. You didn't experiment with other styles or mediums much. It feels like, I always admire you just stuck with something and it worked for you. And it's just so recognisable because of that. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me more about how you arrived to...
I'm glad that's what it feels like, because that's definitely like, as a creative, that's the hardest thing, because so I was also a creative that was really comfortable in a permanent pensionable, like routine salary job. So that's why it looks consistent on the front, I think, because that's what I need also. So while I needed to live my own truth, I also crave the stability I had, and I hate, again, not contributing to the family. So before I left my job, I went to do my first showcase. I met a mentor and she was like, your stuff is everywhere. You need a collection. And I was like, well, it's just me drawing it, so it can't be that inconsistent. But it is, and that I am inconsistent. But I recognise, I think pretty quickly that like if I have to have a successful business, it needs to look more consistent than I am, and it needs to be in a box, which sounds completely contrary to who I am and what I want to be as a person. But I also have 3 children, a mortgage, a lovely dog. You know, they all need to be fed. So, and actually, I thought I'd hate the business side of it, but I love that too, because you can be really creative in business. And like I love learning, and I thrive learning in new environments. So the business side I love. But at the start I really fought with that. But because I met that really cool mentor, she actually was the original founder of the Kilkenny Design Centre in Kilkenny. She just taught me what you need to look like to the public. And I'm not saying that then I'm inauthentic in my art because of that, but it's just what I show the world is more consistent than what's a box of frogs behind the scenes. But if I look through it now, I can see the first collection that I made for my greeting cards. It's very uniform. So I kept 3 little characters, and it's like that little child being good and just a sense of playfulness and wonder and awe and joy. But there's still like it's not an untruth, but there's like, I was holding back in it because I wanted to fit the box and I wanted to do it right. So, but then I had a second collection that was more mindful, and like I can see my healing journey through it. So that was more more simplified and pared back, and like really enjoy those little moments. And like it doesn't have to be elaborately colourful or full of detail. It can just be a cup of tea and say, feel better soon. Also, while I say that's part of my healing journey, and it really is, I could see in a retail perspective that was what was selling on the shelves as well. And then my third collection that I like released to the public is wacky, and it doesn't sell as well, and it's really funny, but I actually don't care because I absolutely love it. And that's where I'm like, do you know what? I need to go down further that road. Like maybe it won't sell, but I can still sell the other two collections, or I can build on them. But it's like, just be whatever the hell you want, throw flowers in and cigarette butts, whatever it is. I don't smoke, but like you can be all of those things and still be perfectly beautiful. So it's called Pop and Candy, and it's just the mess and the chaos, but it's in a really joyful, colourful way. And it's really funny because when I started drawing for those two women, the woman in Clare was like, but could you just put some colour in? I was really afraid of using colour. It was all black, white and yellow. So like it was pencil drawings, ink drawings, and I had a yellow Posca marker, and that was literally all I did my first cards out with. And she was like, I just would love to. I was really afraid if I put colour into any of my drawings that I'd ruin them. Isn't that so? Yeah, isn't it? Like,
I can't say much. I did black and white most of mine.
yeah, it's just the fear, and like nobody was asked. Like she wanted it, she was going to pay for it. So that took so long to get my own head around. You can do anything, but I think the consistency that I throw out to the world is because I'm aware that I also want to be commercial, but like myself entirely is not consistent at all.
Before you had the outlet, you know, of illustrating and drawing, where did your feelings go and what did you do with them?
I was angry. I was really angry. Like I used to be an angry person, but again, not externally, like so internal, and my internal voice was so mean to myself all of the time. I'm such a different person than that person, but I have such respect for her because she kept going. But like I was so angry, and I remember I moved to Limerick when I did my master's with our oldest girl. And I remember with some mornings I wake up and I couldn't even talk to her. I was so angry inside. And I used to swim and go to the gym a little bit, so that was kind of helpful. But I always loved walking. So outside was like where I definitely calmed myself. But it wasn't. I went to one therapist for one time in UL, and he was like, just tell her you're angry. So when I was like, I'm afraid I'm going to affect my little girl because I wake up so angry that I can't even talk. And then she goes to school and she barely gets a piece of me. And he's like, just say I'm angry. And when he said that, I was like, that sounds so basic. And it worked. I was like, what? Like it really, and it's so funny because all I ever wanted to do was work in mental health. So my mum was a mental health nurse for years, and we would have gone to like Christmas parties with her patients and stuff. So mental health was always around, and I always thought we were a really aware family in terms of mental health. But now on reflection, I'm like, oh my God, we were so closed. Yeah, like couldn't even name the feeling. So I used nature a lot, and I would have just done art with her all of the time, but not recognise that was so like if I wasn't able to talk in the evenings and I felt that she was a lot for me, and I had been in college that day, we would just sit down and paint and draw. And so it was always that, but I just never saw it as something that was useful or that I was good at, or that I just never thought I had a gift, because again, I was so like, I'm a healthcare worker. It was always art, but I just didn't know it.
When you're in the studio and you're creating, what this process gives you, like what do you feel internally, or what's going on inside?
I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and the guy said when he had a job when he was 18, he'd be like, oh, it must be 5 o'clock, and it would be 10 a.m. And so his goal in life was to always work in a job, was when it was 5 o'clock, he'd wished it was 10 a.m. And that is how I feel when I draw. Like I could just draw. Sometimes I'll dread getting into a project because I know what I'm like in it, and everything else doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I'm watching a series that I would like to binge, or if the girls have something. Everything else just dissolves away into the background, and I could be there for 2 hours or 5 hours, and like that I won't move off the seat, I won't go to the toilet, I won't get a drink. So it is pure like, it's just like, yeah, like I could do with someone being like setting a reminder, but like I just would love more time on it all of the time. Because it's commercial, I've commercialized it now, that has changed things slightly. I need to look at that because that's not fair on my spirit and like the expectation of giving it to a client now. So that's actually, I think, a part of why I went into greeting cards, because I get to create them. Yeah, it's just pure flow, and it's like, it just brings me home. So I was saying that like I didn't know who I was or where I was in the world, and now through drawing I'm like, I know who I am, and also I don't care where I am in the world because I know who I am. My home is here in me internally, and like that's powerful.
Last question. For someone who's struggling and wants to reconnect with their creativity, what is one piece of advice you would give them?
All I can think of is my husband, because he's the one that said it to me. And when I worked in mental health, I saw the people that recovered well had good family around them. So your community is powerful, but if you don't have a community, what do you do? But first of all, you need to surround yourself with the right people, because if they're tearing you down or they're adding to what's going on internally, it's just not going to work. So I am so blessed. I met John in a pub randomly so many years ago. When I'm struggling now, he's like, just sit down and write out the list and start with the first thing. He's so sound. and so reliable, but also can see in me what I can never see in myself first. So your community is powerful, and that's like, again, going back to greeting cards, like if people can just connect on a really basic level. If you don't have a community and you are struggling to connect, I think if you're removing the outcome, if you're doing something, I don't know, find something that used to bring you joy as a child and try it, and if it doesn't, don't worry about it. It's really hard when you're in that frame of mind to not worry about it, but just keep going. Like, trust that you're here for a reason and you'll find your way, and like, just be so kind to yourself. That's the next thing. Like, community and kindness is community, kindness, joy. That's a really hard question. I think the most thing you can do, like if your community is there, that's amazing, but you yourself need to be really kind to yourself. It doesn't matter what your outlet is. Kindness, like if you're beating yourself up doing it, it's not going to work. So that inner voice, that little person that is talking to you and you're talking back to, that needs to work. That relationship is first.